Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. It's strange how quiet a house can get when someone dies. Caroline passed on a Tuesday morning. Peacefully, the doctors said, as if that was supposed to comfort me. I hadn't stopped moving since then, making calls, filling out forms, organizing flowers she would have hated. She never liked lilies. My name's Michael. I'm 68, retired, living in Evanston, Illinois. I've lived in this house nearly 40 years. Now, it's just me. The morning of the funeral, I stood by the kitchen table with the program proofs and a pen. I was holding my phone in one hand, staring at my son's name, Daniel, 29 years old. Lives downtown with his fiancée, Olivia. I took a breath and called him. "Hey, Dad," he answered, voice casual like we were just chatting. "Just wanted to remind you about the service. 11 o'clock. It's all at the church, no cemetery ride." He sighed. "Yeah, about that." I didn't like that tone. "What about it?" "I'm not gonna make it. Olivia's fashion show is today. Big thing for her brand." I closed my eyes. "You're not coming to your mother's funeral? It's not like she's gonna notice. She's gone. But this show? It's once a year, Dad. People from Vogue are supposed to be there." My hand tightened around the phone. "Your mother raised you. She worked nights while I was finishing graduate school. She helped you with every damn science fair. I know all that. But, come on, I've supported her in other ways." I could feel something inside me sink. Other ways? Like what? Instagram posts? Silence. Then he said, "I'm sorry, but it's not a good time. Mom would understand." "No," I said, my voice steady. "No, she wouldn't." He didn't respond, so I hung up. I sat back down, crossed out Daniel's name from the list of pallbearers, and scribbled in, "David Ewer Spa, cousin." Then I put the pen down and stared at the wall. The church was full. Old friends, neighbors, Caroline's cousins from Wisconsin. The choir sang "Abide with Me," just like she wanted, but through the entire service I kept catching the whispers. "Where's Daniel? Wasn't he supposed to speak? Maybe he couldn't get a flight." They were being kind. No one said what they were really thinking, that her only son didn't bother to show up. I stood at the podium and tried to keep my voice from shaking. Caroline always said being a mother was her life's greatest role. I paused. She gave her everything, even when it wasn't convenient, even when it cost her. People nodded, some crying softly, but my heart felt hollow. I looked out at the pews, at Olivia's empty seat, and for the first time since the hospital called, I felt something darker than grief. It was disappointment, pure and sharp. Back at the house, the food was untouched. Guests offered condolences and filled the silence with small talk. But everyone noticed the missing chair at the end of the table, the chair I had saved for my son. And when the last car pulled away, I stood in the hallway, Caroline's coat still hanging by the door, and whispered to no one. I buried my wife today. Alone. Daniel hadn't just skipped a service. He abandoned his mother, and he left me to do it all by myself. I didn't go straight to bed after the funeral. I couldn't. The house didn't feel right. It didn't feel like home without Caroline's slippers under the bench or her music humming softly from the kitchen speaker. It felt like a museum of someone I used to know, someone I still loved like hell. I walked through the living room slowly. Her teacup from last week still sat by the window. Half a crossword finished on the ottoman. She always left puzzles half done, saying she liked to come back to them with fresh eyes. I stood there a while, staring at it, before finally making my way upstairs. The envelope was on her dresser. Pale blue, folded neatly with my name written in her careful handwriting. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it with trembling fingers. "Michael, if I go before you, please make sure Daniel never forgets everything we gave up for him. Remind him of our sacrifices. He needs to understand. He won't see it on his own." There was no date, no salutation, just those sentences. That was Caroline, direct and deliberate. I stayed up most of the night after that. Sometime past midnight, I pulled out the box from the back of the closet, Caroline's box, the one she kept filled with mementos of Daniel's life. I had always teased her about being sentimental, but now I clung to it like oxygen. Inside were old report cards with scribbles like "excellent participation" circled in red, handprints from kindergarten, birthday cards, a worn acceptance letter from Northwestern, a wrinkled check receipt for $10,000, labeled Daniel's first apartment, security, and 3 months' rent. Another for his used car. And more, college loans, wedding contributions, 2 credit card bailouts, the down payment for the condo. I got out a legal pad and started listing everything, item by item, estimate by estimate. Then I grabbed the calculator. Tuition alone, close to $180,000. Condo, we'd gifted them almost $200. Fashion school for Olivia when she dropped out of her program, another $50. And all the loans, the ones we forgave, totaled nearly $500 more. When the total cleared on the screen, I sat back in my chair. $962,000. I stared at that number for a long time. And in that moment, I realized something that made my stomach turn. Daniel never once asked how we managed all of it, never asked what we'd given up. We never took vacations. Caroline clipped grocery coupons like it was a game. I worked until 67, so Daniel wouldn't have to worry, but he never saw it. Caroline had, she saw it all, and now she was gone, and I was done. No more checks, no more favors. No more pretending he hadn't taken everything we gave and given nothing back. The call came just after 9 the next morning. I was at the dining table, sipping the same cup of coffee I'd reheated twice, staring at Caroline's favorite chair across from me. Her cardigan still hung over the back. It hadn't moved since the week before. My phone buzzed. Daniel. I didn't want to answer, but I did. "Hello." "Hey, Dad," he said, chipper like nothing had happened. "Quick thing, we ran into a little budget problem with Olivia's show. Everything went great, by the way. People loved it. But the venue upcharged, and we went over by $15,000. Can you wire me the difference today?" I set my coffee down. $15,000? I said flatly. "Yeah, it's not a huge deal. We'll pay you back once some sponsorship money clears. Maybe in a few months." I didn't say anything. "Dad?" he prompted. I breathed in slow. "No." There was a beat of silence on his end. "Wait, what?" "I said no," I repeated. "I'm not sending you money." "Are you serious right now?" he asked, his tone changing. "You're going to hold back over one payment? Olivia's entire season depends on this." "Your mother just died," I said, "and you didn't come to her funeral. But you had no problem showing up for a runway event." He scoffed. "We've been over this. She's gone. I honored her in my own way. She wouldn't want us to fail over something like this." "She wanted you to remember what we did for you. How much we gave up," I said, voice tightening. "I found her note, Daniel. She asked me to remind you." Another pause. "You're being dramatic," he said. "You're just grieving and looking for someone to take it out on. Mom wouldn't want this bitterness between us." I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Don't use her to justify your mess. This isn't about grief. It's about the fact that you've never grown up, and that ends today." He laughed, sharp and forced. "Wow, so that's it? You're cutting me off like some stranger?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm treating you like an adult." He cursed under his breath and hung up. I sat in the silence after, waiting for guilt to come. It didn't. Instead, for the first time in years, I felt something else. Relief. The following Monday, I walked into the office earlier than usual. Our firm, Carter and Shaw Architects, had been my second home for over 30 years. Caroline used to say I loved it almost as much as I loved her. Maybe she was right. Every corner of the place had her fingerprints. She helped design the office layout, picked the paint colors, even chose the chairs in reception. It was our legacy. Not just mine. I passed by Daniel's office, door open, but no sign of him. His desk was cluttered with product samples, a half-eaten protein bar, and an untouched client folder I'd given him 2 weeks ago. That was the last straw. I went into my office, shut the door, and pulled up his records on the shared drive. Missed deadlines, ignored clients, sloppily drawn plans with missing specs. Notes from partners quietly flagging his behavior. Late arrivals, defensive replies, arrogance in meetings. It was all there, stacked and dated. The truth was Daniel had never earned this job. He got it because he was my son. But Caroline had believed in him, so I did too. We thought maybe he'd grow into the responsibility. But he didn't. And now, even with her gone, he showed no sign of change. I picked up the phone and called Marlene in HR. "I need you to prep Daniel Carter's termination paperwork. Final pay, severance, standard. and have security available when he arrives, discreet but ready. She didn't ask questions, just said, "Understood." At 10:13, Daniel waltzed in, latte in hand, sunglasses on his head, wearing some overpriced jacket I probably paid for 2 birthdays ago. "Morning," he said, barely glancing at me as he walked past. "Daniel," I said, stepping out of my office, "I need you to come in here." He looked at me, confused but not concerned. "Sure, what's up?" I sat across from him, papers already laid out. "I'm terminating your employment with the firm," I said clearly, "effective immediately." His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then he laughed, an incredulous little snort. "Wait, what? Is this some joke?" "Number, bossy, you've consistently failed to meet expectations. You've mismanaged clients. You've used your position here as a cushion, not a career. That ends now." "You're firing your own son?" he snapped, eyes narrowing. "After everything?" "You were hired because of me," I said. "But your performance reflects only on you. This company meant something to your mother. I won't let you ruin what she helped build." He stood up. "You can't do this. Security will escort you out. Your access has already been revoked." I could see the flush of humiliation spread across his neck as 2 plainclothes guards stepped into view at the door. "You're making a huge mistake," he muttered. "No," I said calmly. "I made one by hiring you in the first place." As he walked past the leadership wall in the lobby, I reached up and pulled down the framed photo of him we'd hung when he made partner. Caroline's eyes stared back at me from the one beside it. I whispered, "I'm fixing it," and meant it. 2 days after Daniel's termination, Olivia showed up at the firm. She came in like a storm, heels clacking, sunglasses still on indoors, a folder in one hand and fury in the other. She didn't wait to be announced. I heard her voice echo down the hallway before my assistant could even buzz the phone. "Where is he? Where's Michael Carter?" I stood from my desk and opened my door just as she reached it. "Olivia," I said calmly, "you're not scheduled—" "Save it," she snapped. "We need to talk, now." She pushed past me into the office like she owned the building. I shut the door behind her, slowly. "You fired Daniel without cause? That's illegal. We're pursuing legal action and demand severance. Retroactive." I sat down. "No, Olivia, Daniel was terminated for cause, documented poor performance. It's all on file. He had every opportunity." "You think you're untouchable because you have money?" she said, voice climbing. "You destroyed his future, and you embarrassed him in front of your entire firm. You think that won't come back to you?" I stayed quiet. Let her yell. Let her flail. "This is unbelievable," she spat. "After everything Daniel's done for this company, for this family, you're throwing him out because he couldn't make it to your wife's funeral?" I raised my eyes slowly. My wife's name was Caroline. And yes, skipping her funeral was a part of the problem. That shut her up for a moment. Just a moment. "I'm warning you," she said, her voice lower now. "We know people, big clients, social connections. You think this won't affect your reputation? You're welcome to tell anyone the truth," I said. "That Daniel skipped his mother's funeral for a fashion show, showed up drunk to meetings, and left half our projects unfinished." She stared at me, realizing I wasn't bluffing. "I'll have someone escort you out now," I said calmly. "No," she hissed. "I'll walk." But as she turned to go, she noticed Marlene from HR standing by the open door, and behind her, a few curious eyes peeking from the bullpen. Her tantrum hadn't gone unnoticed. By that afternoon, word had spread. Olivia's boutique contacts, the same socialites who clinked glasses with her at charity luncheons, began pulling back. A board member of her fashion club reportedly called her unstable. Daniel's name was quietly dropped from the upcoming golf invitational, and the client he'd botched last quarter pulled out completely. Their image had always been their currency. Now it was worthless. By week's end, no one was returning their calls. Their bubble, the one they'd built on appearances and my money, had finally burst. I met with my attorney and my banker on a quiet Thursday morning. No emotion, no ceremony, just 2 signed forms and a few password-protected logins. "Are you sure about this?" my attorney asked. "I'm not cutting him off," I replied. "I'm just stepping aside and letting the real world handle him." By noon, Daniel's safety net no longer existed. His mortgage, once guaranteed by my signature, was now his to bear. The luxury credit cards he used for hotel stays and brand expenses? Frozen. Business line of credit? Canceled. It didn't take long for the consequences to reach him. 3 days later, I received a string of voicemails. None from Daniel. First, it was Olivia. "There's a mistake with the American Express. It's declined at every terminal. You need to call them." Then it was a frantic call from Daniel's assistant. "The vendor is threatening to sue if the invoice isn't paid this week. He said you'd handle it." I didn't reply, not to them, not to anyone. Instead, I cleaned out the garage. Caroline had always said clutter was the enemy of peace. I figured it was as good a time as any to start living by that. That weekend, I heard from a mutual friend, one of Daniel's old golf buddies. He showed up to the club, trying to talk his way into a dinner. They turned him away, said his membership dues bounced. He looked rough. I said nothing, just nodded. A week later, Olivia's boutique line was officially removed from the downtown retail collective. Her social pages were quiet now, all sponsored content gone. Whispers circled that unpaid interns had threatened to go public. By month's end, they'd started selling things. The Range Rover was the first to go. Then the leased espresso machine, the art from their entryway, the smart fridge that talked back. From what I heard, Olivia had a full meltdown in their foyer when their utilities were shut off mid-live stream. She blamed Daniel, of course. "You said your father would fix everything." "Well, he won't anymore," Daniel screamed back, loud enough for the neighbors to call security. I didn't celebrate, but I didn't regret anything either. I knew Daniel had tried applying for work again, smaller firms, startups, but his name carried weight now, and not the good kind. His reputation as a careless legacy hire followed him. Olivia stopped showing up at events. Daniel stopped showing up anywhere. From my porch, I could finally breathe again. They thought I had ruined them. But really, I'd just let gravity do its job. The notice came in the mail 6 months after I cut the last financial tie. Public foreclosure. Final auction date, Tuesday, 11 a.m. at the county courthouse. I didn't need to ask questions. I already knew how they'd gotten there. The house was the one Caroline and I had helped Daniel buy. We paid the down payment, co-signed the loan, and even fronted the cost of the designer renovations Olivia insisted on. "Investment in your future," she'd said back then. Now, it was just one more name on a list of foreclosures. My lawyer, Jeff, agreed to represent me at the auction. He didn't ask why. I think he already knew. "It'll raise some eyebrows," he said. "I'm not buying it to make a point," I lied. I didn't attend the auction in person, but Daniel did. Jeff told me later he showed up 20 minutes early, pacing at the courthouse steps in a wrinkled blazer and scuffed loafers, still trying to look like someone he wasn't anymore. Olivia arrived 5 minutes later, in oversized sunglasses and the same expression she wore when she barged into my office. They both stood frozen when Jeff placed the final bid, the highest by a wide margin. "No objections," the auctioneer announced. Daniel stared at him, stunned. "You can't do that. That's our house." Jeff remained calm. It was, not anymore. Olivia broke first. She lunged forward, voice shrill, yelling at the clerk, yelling at Jeff, yelling at the bystanders who had turned to watch. "This is theft. You people are disgusting. He can't do this. He's his father." Security stepped in before it escalated, but not before every phone in the crowd started recording. Daniel didn't say much. He stood off to the side, head down, lips pressed together, hands shaking. Later that evening, he showed up at my doorstep. I didn't open the door. I spoke through the intercom. "It's done." "You took everything from me," he said, voice cracking. "No," I replied. "You threw everything away. I just stopped catching you." There was a pause. Then he asked, almost in a whisper, "What am I supposed to do now?" "You figure it out," I said, "like everyone else does." "I don't have anywhere to go." "That's not my problem anymore." Silence. And then I said the words I'd carried for months. "Actions have consequences, Daniel. You're just finally meeting yours." I watched from the upstairs window as he stood there for a few minutes, motionless. Then Olivia came around the corner in her car, not their usual SUV, but an older model sedan. The trunk was half open, packed with boxes. She didn't even roll down the window, just honked once. He looked at her, then at the house behind him, then climbed in. They drove off. Together. For now. But 2 weeks later, I heard through a neighbor that Olivia left him. She couldn't stand the shame anymore. Apparently, neither could he. It was raining the night Daniel showed up. I heard the knock just after 8. Not urgent, but not hesitant either. I opened the door to find him standing there, soaked through, hair plastered to his forehead, holding a soggy manila envelope. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly, and so I stepped aside. "You've got 5 minutes." He sat on the edge of the couch like a man about to receive a verdict. His shoes left damp prints on the hardwood. "I lost everything," he said. "The house, Olivia, the business contacts. It's all gone." I didn't respond. He looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. "I know I've done a lot wrong. I was selfish. I didn't see what Mom meant to you, to us." I folded my arms. "What was her favorite flower?" He blinked. "What?" "Her favorite flower," I repeated. "Tell me." I don't know." "Roses?" "Lilacs," I said. "She planted them every spring. You walked past them every day." He looked down. "What about her favorite movie?" I asked. He hesitated. "That black and white one? Casablanca? It was To Kill a Mockingbird?" I turned and walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a small leather journal, and set it down in front of him. "Caroline's." "Go ahead," I said. "Open it to the last page." He flipped through slowly. When he found the page, I watched his eyes move, his lips parting. I don't know if Daniel loves us for who we are, or just for what we give. Sometimes I wonder if I failed as a mother. He shut the journal like it burned. "I didn't know she felt that way," he whispered. "You didn't know a lot of things," I said. "Because you never asked." He looked up. "I want to fix it. I want to be better." "You don't fix this with words," I said. "And you sure as hell don't fix it with apologies that only come after the wells run dry." "I'm not asking for money," he said quickly. "Just a chance." "You've had more chances than most men get in a lifetime." He stood, shoulders slumped, eyes pleading. "Please." I stepped toward the door and opened it. He stood frozen, then finally moved past me, out into the rain again. I didn't slam the door. I closed it slowly, firmly. Then I sat at the kitchen table and poured myself a glass of scotch. And for the first time since Caroline died, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. 1 year later, I stood at Caroline's grave with a cup of coffee and a small bouquet of lilacs. "Hey, sweetheart," I said quietly. "I thought I'd give you a little update." The Caroline Memorial Foundation had its first full year of operation. We funded scholarships for 3 young women going into architecture. One of them cried when she found out. Caroline would have adored her. There's also a garden project downtown in her name, and a research grant for women-led design firms. I'd never seen her smile bigger than when she talked about women getting their foot in the door. I crouched to place the flowers down, brushing a few stray leaves from the headstone. "I think you'd be proud," I whispered. The wind shifted, and I turned toward the road just as a familiar figure crossed the grass toward me. Daniel. He was thinner, hair shorter, tan lines on his arms from working outdoors. His shirt read, "Ray's Diner," coffee with a smile. His apron was still tucked into his waistband. "Hi," he said. "Hi," I replied. He stood beside me in silence, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on the stone. "I come here sometimes, mornings before shift." I nodded but said nothing. "She liked lilacs," he added. I looked at him. "She did." He glanced down. I remember her always trimming them, humming while she did it. I never really listened back then. I do now. I wasn't sure what to say, so I let him speak. "I've been trying to fix things," he said. "Got a job at the diner. I rent a room over the garage from the owner. It's small, but it's clean. Honest work." I studied him. He looked different, worn but more human. He turned toward me. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. Not because I lost things, but because I finally see what I threw away." I nodded slowly. "Regret's not worth much if it ends there." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm not asking for anything, just telling you where I am." That was new. The absence of expectation, the absence of the old Daniel. "I hope you keep going," I said. He gave a small smile, nodded, and walked off without waiting for anything in return. That night, I sat on the back porch of Caroline's garden, now rebuilt with volunteers and donated stone. Grace joined me, a widow I met at a local community build. We weren't rushing anything, just dinners and long walks. She had kind eyes and a calming presence. As the sun dipped below the trees, I felt something loosen in my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel haunted by what was lost. I felt surrounded by what remained, and I swear, just as the breeze swept through the lilacs, I felt Caroline there with me, quiet and proud,